Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 19 of Goats and Cookies. This one is called The Government Raised Me. Before we get into it, I'm just going to hand it straight over to Zach for our book of the week, and then I'll do introductions and we'll get started.
All right, guys, we're gonna change up the pace on this one. Not a Marine Corps related book this go around, but this is one of my favorite books on the Second World War. It's called Are My Always? And it is the group history of the 355th Fighter Group in World War II and their journey. They're kind of one of, in my opinion, the one of the overlooked fighter groups of the 8th Air Force in the Second World War. But what's really cool about this book is it details every single mission they flew, all their losses, all their confirmed aerial victories, and German aircraft destroyed on the ground. But what's super cool, a very good friend of mine that I made in the interviewing process served as a fighter pilot with this unit. He shot down two German planes in World War II. His name was Bill Lyons, and I sent it to him, and he signed it and sent me back a bunch of pictures of his time in service and whatnot. I'll show you guys a badass photograph of Bill sitting here in the cockpit. And Bill would actually, if he had Zoom, would actually dig this show. He has a lot of our views, and this guy's 102 years old. He's really fucking cool.
Yeah.
But that's Bill sitting in the cockpit of his P-51. Very sound of mind today, but great book if you guys can ever find it. Really unique history of the Second World War.
Thanks, man. That actually looks really fucking good. That's a snazzy photo too. I wish I was that handsome and fucking I had some badass stuff. All mine, I'm like covered in dirt and grime, and I look like an asshole. Um, So before we get started, our intros, I'm joined by my co-hosts, Zach and Lou. I'm sure you all already know them. And our special guest today is Matt DeBoard. He was a combat correspondent in the United States Marine Corps. And if Matt, if you want to just give a short summary of your career and your credentials, we'd really appreciate it.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me. Thanks for the invite. So I first enlisted in 1997, got out in August, well, July 31st of 2001, and then rejoined about 3 years later, 2.5 years later, lap moving from 0311 to combat correspondent. Um, I went to, the first thing I did was I was attached to an infantry battalion for Katrina, then did a couple of Iraq deployments, and ended my 10, 11 year career in the Marines in Northern California as the marketing and public affairs Marine for Recruiting Station San Francisco.
Very
Got out in
cool.
2010.
Hell yeah. I got a question for Matt real quick because I always ask the correspondents and photographers this question. What was your favorite unit to work with in your time in the Marine Corps as a correspondent?
Favorite unit to work with? Probably the Katrina battalion, I think it was 1-8. They had just gotten back from Fallujah in 2000, probably when you guys were there, maybe Lou. So they had seen a lot of fighting and lost a lot of guys. And it was pretty, looking back, like having my grown man brain, looking back, they were pretty raw, really, really raw. And, it was, but one of the things they did was one of the Marines they lost lived nearby. They lived in Alabama, and their family lived in Alabama, and their house got messed up by the hurricane. And so they sent a platoon of Marines over there to actually work on his mom's house. And that was it was raw, and like there was a bonfire night that night that his mom put on, and it was just, this was before I went to Iraq or anything. And so I didn't understand what why they were, I just didn't understand the vibe. It felt spooky and weird to me, you know. But after I did my tours and all that, it's like, but after I grew up, I really appreciated how they were being so like gentle with his mom. Bradley Faircloth was the Marine. And They were being really gentle and sweet and stuff. Obviously they were really coarse. But anyway, that was probably my favorite unit to work with. That's a really like special memory for me. And it was just interesting seeing how raw they were and how from combat and losing a lot of people. And how gentle and caring they were being with his mom.
Yeah, it's interesting how we remember the names like that because I have a bunch of them in my head too. I'm sure Lou does. I'm sure even Zach does. You know, they just stick with us. And those moments where even if we don't understand, we kind of understand, and then in retrospect, we absolutely understand. It's an interesting life we've all lived. You know.
Yeah.
So yeah, I really appreciate that. And again, we're really glad to have you here. You know, real quick, my favorite unit that I was ever with was actually 3-8. I have, I don't know if I'll be able to get it in the frame up here. That that hat right there. That's a 3-8 hat. I deployed with MAGTF 8 to Haiti in 2004. 2004. And with 3-8, and I was embedded with them for a long time. It was an absolutely awesome fucking unit, and it was an honor to be with them. You know, I
Were they the Dark Battalion? Was that
yeah,
their?
yeah. So yeah, all right. Well, we're gonna go ahead and get started with our episode. It's called "The Government Raised Me." So today we're actually gonna probably piss some people off. You know, I've said plenty of times that I am a socialist, and I've also said that some of the best years of my life were spent in the Marine Corps, more because of the people I met than the actual experience. But I'll leave it at that. So to a lot of people, those two things they just don't belong in the same sentence. Now, before anybody starts typing any angry comments, I got to be really clear about this. I'm not saying the Marine Corps is literally a socialist institution. It's not. It's the military of a capitalist country. What I am saying is this: the Corps gave me a paycheck, it gave me health care, it gave me housing, it fed me, it trained me, it educated me. And when I got blown up, no one handed me a bill. If I stayed in for 20 years or medically retired after 10 and a half, like I did, I earned a pension. Nobody called any of that socialism. We called it just taking care of Marines. Because when the mission matters, we understand something very simple. You take care of your people first. So today, I think that's going to be our conversation. Why are we perfectly comfortable investing in people when they're wearing a uniform, but the second they take it off, we call that a handout? Um, so now if you want to go ahead and type up your angry comments, go for it. We'll we'll reply to them one by one. But otherwise, you know, I'll say the mission comes first because nobody is fighting to survive. When you're in the Marine Corps, you're not wondering how you're going to pay for a doctor's visit or whether you can afford groceries that week. The basics are pretty much all covered. That doesn't make life easy. It just means you can focus on your job instead of just focusing on surviving. So, my question to you guys, looking back, how much better could you do your job because you weren't constantly worrying about healthcare, housing, or your next meal?
I can start off. I mean, for me, as a young 19, 20, 21 year old, um, it those are things I just never had to worry about, as you said. And so for me in the Marine Corps, my job was everything. Like that's all I had to focus on. That's all I needed to focus on, because I wasn't worrying about, if I got sick, am I going to go bankrupt? Or if you know I didn't have any dependents at the time, but I'm sure for people who had kids or a wife, they don't have to worry about like, well, if my kid gets sick, like, are we going to have benefits for them to be able to go see a doctor? Um, all that's taken care of, and it's not in any way a financial burden because it's all literally taken care of. There's no co-pays, no anything like that, as far as I know. Um, but yeah, I was just able to completely focus on my job. Imagine that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what's kind of crazy about the resistance to doing these kind of social benefits. Like when I got out in 2010, the last time, like I remember it being controversial to go. Like I asked my family, I was like, or I told my family, like, I think everybody should just get the education and medical benefits I get. Like I don't see like why do we do it? Like because I was getting exposed to how the civilian world worked. And it's like it's such a huge distraction. It's such a huge stressor. I've lost a job a couple of times, and it's like, I'm a single dad. I mean, she's, grown now, but and it's like, man, if I lose my job, like we're in big trouble. And like, obviously you're not gonna necessarily lose your job in the military, but like just the phenomenon of, well, I don't have to worry about anything except the mission, or whatever, like whatever we're doing. I don't have to worry about anything except getting my stories in, get my photographs taken, or completing training successfully, or whatever. It just takes so much off your plate. That is just a part of like American life for some reason that you know, we've all apparently agreed that it just has to be that way. And I just fundamentally disagree. We can make everybody's life better. But, yeah.
And I think Jesse has said it before too about look at what happens when you have a workforce, just moving the military aside, like when you have a workforce that's taken care of, that's well paid, that has medical insurance, that has education benefits, that the family is taken care of because of the work and the output that they produce for the companies, you have better workers. And so, and you get more production out of them. And like Matt said, I don't understand why it's such a complicated or controversial thing to say that people deserve healthcare and at the very least, um, and education benefits as well. It's like that; those types of things benefit us as a society, not just the individual person. But when you have somebody that collectively, when you have a group of people that are well taken care of, you're going to get more production out of them. You're going to get higher quality production out of them, and you're not going to have a bunch of like angry ass motherfuckers who are trying to just scrape by in this world when they're busting their ass for sometimes 60 to 80 hours a week because they got to get a second or third job because the first job don't take care of them the way that they should. And yeah, I wish every industry was set up the way that the military is, as far as benefits and taking care of their employees. And the fact that I think most of the justification ends up being, well, they're fighting for our freedom and blah blah blah. So we'll give them that. It's like, okay, so I have to fucking die, like, or put my life on the line to get these basic fucking things.
Yeah.
That's the part that never, like, when people were like, uh, like, to get ahead in this world, to get a education where you don't have uh, crippling fucking student loan debt, you have to put your life on the line for the country. Like, how does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, even I mean, as sympathetic to like a socialist worldview that as I am, like even if for dyed in the wool capitalists, it's like you want the most skilled, advanced labor market that you can get. And so why wouldn't you prioritize getting education into the brains of as many people as you could, as you can? Healthcare, I kind of understand if you put on your psychotic capitalist hat, because it's like, well, by leaving healthcare in the hands of the employer, you reduce labor mobility. Like you can't just leave your job trivially because there's a huge cost. You lose your healthcare, and that's massive. So it's kind of like this captured audience. Like nobody's in the Marine or in the military, you're signing a contract and you're there whether you like it or not. But out in a free labor market, which don't make me laugh, but like in that kind of market on paper, like nobody's signing a contract. So if you want to capture the labor market, you have to chain them to their desks somehow. And healthcare is a really good way to do that. Sorry if that was too cynical. I don't think
No,
so for this podcast, though.
no, it fits. Zach, what do you have to add, man? I
Well,
know, yeah.
from
I'm really intrigued by your position on this.
from my point of view, as an educator looking in on the military, I remember my grandma, but people in my small town that I grew up in, especially. Um, 04, 05, 06, and definitely in 2010 when the war heated up again in Afghanistan. Um, of saying that, our servicemen and women need to be paid like doctors. And I'm like, okay, and as I got older and became a teacher, I was like, I can get behind that, but why don't we have this same push for educators, in the state of North Carolina? It's like, well, Matt, you don't know this, but you're about to. I taught for 9.5 years, and I left in January to go work for corporate capitalist America to make more money because that was an opportunity that I was lucky to get. And, one of the questions that I've had when I was an educator is that why don't people have this drive to bring quality pay to our educators? Because, if you get quality pay and education, you're going to get quality teachers that are going to teach with passion and rigor and vigor to these kids and install actual education into our students. We are going to be pushing the youth of America to the next fucking level. Then I realized at some point that I was like, that's not what they want. They don't want us to properly educate our kids to be thinking for themselves, to actually have the problem solving abilities given to them, the rationale to think for themselves. We don't want that. We want them to just accept things, nod their heads, and move ourselves along. And that's where, going back to the root of this is, if I had better pay as a teacher, I wouldn't have to worry about sometimes where it did feel like, I mean, I didn't feel like it. I was living paycheck to paycheck, because of the debt that I had, because of just trying to get by and make ends meet, working jobs through the summer to get through the summer, multiple jobs. I did a hodgepodge of shit. I could tell you some cool stuff from the hodgepodge of shit that I did. But if we put that effort into just education, nurses, doctors, hell, even properly taking our law enforcement and making them go through a rigorous educational background, but with better pay if they come out on it. You realize how much better our law enforcement would be if we actually educated them?
Yeah,
Crazy.
yeah. You know, I'll
Yeah,
I'll
we
uh
need to.
I'll point out that, talking to a lot of the younger crowd, I'm not going to be like, oh, those damn kids, but I don't feel like critical thinking is pushed in education anymore. It's more
It's not.
packets and, standardization. I was in fourth grade in fucking poor ass Piedmont, South Carolina. I We had an entire class on critical thinking. We were taught to criticize and then think from below, not from to accept from above and just and move on with our life. We were taught to sift up through the bullshit and see what was actually real, what was actually affecting us, and take those lessons and live our lives. As far as healthcare, us talking, you guys, I mean, I really appreciate your comments here. I'll say really quick, because I know this isn't Kevin's talk time, but being retired, I didn't do 20 years. I did 10 and a half years. I was wounded in Iraq and I was given medical retirement, which is a relatively new thing. But I have a full retirement. I have my pension, I have my healthcare. I got to keep TRICARE for life, on top of my VA healthcare. So it's not even the same thing. A lot of people make that mistake. I go to work and I get one of those days, like just one of those fucking days where it's just too much. And working in an OR, you can imagine what too much is for me. Um, I think, man, I could just walk away from this shit right now. I could just walk away and I wouldn't, I'd just get another job. There's plenty of jobs out there. This is what runs through my mind. I'm not going to just quit, but it has crossed my mind many times when I'm overloaded, overworked, disproportionately worked. And then I talk to my colleagues about it and they're like, "Oh yeah." And they go on and I'm thinking to myself, why did they have that reaction? And it's because exactly what you guys are talking about. I have TRICARE for life. They don't. I have a pension. They don't. These guys who are my age, like my colleagues who are my peers, they can't afford to think like that. They can't afford to because their healthcare, their childcare, their pay, their pension, that hasn't vested yet because they haven't worked enough years in whatever corporate conglomerate they're in. Um, they're tied to it. They're slaves to it. It's it hits me like a ton of fucking bricks, and I shut up because I feel privileged. That said, what Lou said a moment ago about having to sacrifice your life for it. I ran over a fucking IED. You know, I had a brain injury. I was at Wounded Warriors for a year and a half. I was in the hospital for 2 years. Is it worth it? You know, is it worth the free college that's now obsolete because of AI? Is it worth the healthcare that I get that I would have gotten through my work anyway? Is it worth it? And I'll just leave it at that and move on, unless you guys have something to add.
Is it worth it? You're the
Is
only
it?
one here who can answer that question, I think. Is it, in your opinion, is it worth it?
You know, in that I can question whether I want to walk out of work or not when I'm overloaded, maybe. But at the same time, I see my colleagues not struggling with that because they can't afford to have those thoughts. And as a socialist, it pisses me the fuck off, you know? What you were saying about being tied and chained to a desk, I mean, like if they could do it, they would have us paying for our healthcare with wooden nickels at the company store. You know what I'm saying? We have the Constitution at our back. That's all we have. It's a thin piece of paper between us and them. And as long as we're supporting and defending it, um, I think we're kind of protected. It's kind of worth it. But how thin is that piece of paper? We've seen with this current administration how thin it is. We've seen the wet spots and the little holes poked through it. You know what I'm saying? Is it worth it? You know, is it worth the brain injury that I have? Is it worth, you know, the sleepless nights? Is it worth the anxiety attacks? Is it worth it? I don't know that I can answer that. You know, I can answer it with more questions. So,
It's even the question kind of the 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 assumption that the question is based on isn't it doesn't even really resonate with me, like, because is is getting hurt worth having a closed off system where military gets back? it's it's not even really a question of whether it's worth it. It's like, is it fair?
yeah. Well, that's
A
what we
fair
get
way
for.
to
Go
go.
ahead. Sorry. Sorry.
I was just saying, is it a fair way to run a society where you have to, to earn, because I've never been injured in the line of duty, like, and so, is it fair that these things are administrated this way? Is it fair that people get injured and they get, like, they get all these benefits, but then out in the rest of the world, or I'm sorry, the rest of the country, like, they have to scrape and suffer and suffer and suffer and suffer. So I think it's less a question of value and more a question of fundamental fairness, I think.
Yeah, it's our own fault for not being born wealthy. So,
Yeah, that's the other option, right?
yeah, yeah. I mean, we should have been born with trust funds. It's our own
I,
goddamn fault.
if I could just if I could just add one thing to what Zach was talking about the
Please.
education side of it, like with cops and stuff like that. There's a comedian that talked about this of like how like low educated, like the requirements are for to be a police officer, and literally it's like they're like, well, you passed grade school, then go solve the murder, go solve this intricate fucking serial killer fucking shit. You passed
Yeah.
algebra one, you're good.
You know the Pythagorean theorem.
You got a C, you got a C minus. Be all right.
Well, moving on, I'll say, you know, we never really called it socialism. We just called it taking care of Marines, to my earlier point. Nobody complained. Well, you know, we hardly ever complained about the government issued gear. You know, no one complained about free medical care, and no one refused BAS because it was taxpayer funded. No one thought that chow hall food was communism. Kind of related to everything going on in New York right now. So inside the core, you know, we understood these things weren't luxuries. They were part of building an effective fighting force. So my question to you guys is, why do you think Americans accept collective support in the military, but see those same ideas differently when they're applied to civilians?
Propaganda.
That's you guys. You guys made the
Yeah, yeah, I know.
propaganda.
And we wanted to keep all that healthcare for ourselves, dude. Um, uh, yeah, it's definitely a, I would say this, Vietnam veterans didn't have it as easy as well. So we're looking at this, I think, in the context of now, as opposed to then. Um, um, but yeah, I think in general it is because it's sort of like a we've got to take care of our veterans. I think that's one thing that both in this stupid ass two party system, it's the one thing that both of the corrupt sides can at least to pretend to agree on is that we got to take care of the veterans, and we're strong on taking care of our veterans. And then you'll have veterans running, which I love. I love veterans getting involved, obviously, in our political system, so long as they are remembering their oath and not just going in to become a millionaire like the rest of the old fucking crypt keepers that are up in there. Um, but sorry, I know I run off on those little tangents and stuff, but yeah, I think that there's a lot of things that veterans sort of get, veterans and military sort of get a pass on when it comes to those sort of standards. And some of it, a lot of times, is even voicing your political views. With the exception of social media, I've been told a thousand times, regardless of anything, that I'm an un-American piece of shit because I disagree with one policy of a certain president or another, but like uh, yeah, there's just I think it's just been ingrained and like embedded in our brains that we've got to take care of our veterans, and with that comes those sort of special privileges, like because again, to them, healthcare is a privilege. It's something that you supposed to supposedly earn, whether that be through the military or through your employer. And that's just a concept that has been driven home through these propaganda things. And yeah, that's helps keep billionaires, billionaires
Yeah.
on their way to being trillionaires.
Well, it's conditioning from my standpoint too, to echo onto that, Lou's talking about the ingrainment. I can remember as a kid, little kid, always being reminded for parades that we would have either at Christmas or Fourth of July, and there was always like the VFW involved in some capacity, where you would have troops that just got home from their deployments. And it would always be, stand for the veterans, clap for the veterans. And I always have, always will. But a lot of that for average, blue collar America, as I see it to an extent, is that conditioning of that we got to take care of our boys. They think of their grandfathers, their parents who perhaps fought in World War II, their cousins or uncles in Vietnam, and as Lou pointed out, Vietnam is a sore point. I know my grandmother, when she was still alive, whenever we would talk about her first cousin Eugene, she would always bring up that he died from Agent Orange, and that was before he could ever get help from the government, and that she would always monthly send checks to, I think, Wounded Warrior, if I'm not mistaken, that she would give donations to. And it's like as a kid, I can remember when we were in elementary school, we wrote letters to and Kevin, I hope you and Lou or even Matt got to read some of the stuff I sent you guys when you were overseas, because I remember writing those things that we sent out. Um, and I remember the military films coming out in that time frame. I remember when Black Hawk Down came out. And the tone and vibe that Black Hawk Down established. We were soldiers, and you've got these films that are great in many ways and tie into that propaganda aspect. I always remind people, at least when I taught a class on the Holocaust, propaganda doesn't always have to be negative. There can be propaganda that is shown in a positive light that still has an impact and does a manipulation on you, and that stays with you to an extent. That's what propaganda is supposed to do. And it is that factor of, you guys volunteered, especially the GWAT generation. You're all volunteers, every single one of you. There hasn't been a draft since the Vietnam War. You took that oath, you signed a dotted line. A lot of people, that's their voting point. That is something they will all agree on no matter what because of their personal connections to the military with their family or their own service.
Yeah, to me, the flip side of this is the interesting question because I wouldn't change anything about the socialism, like the benefits of the military. I wouldn't change anything about them. But it's like, why does it disgust people to even talk about entitlements, so-called entitlements? And like, to me, it's like a huge historical look back to like Lee Atwater and the Southern strategy and like, well, you can't say the N word anymore, but you can talk about, you know, tax cuts and benefits and being tough on crime and stuff like that as being another way of talking about or encoding um, racial separatism into our society because you can make this other person the other, like telling the white, working class guy that the black working class guy is stealing his cookies, but really it's the rich guy who has everything and is pitting us against each other. Because at the root of all this is this scarcity mindset that well, there's not enough. That's what these debates always boil down to, in my experience of debating this topic in one way or another online for the past 25 years or whatever, is like it always boils down to, well, who's going to pay for it? Who's going to pay for it? Well, we are, dude. There's so much money. We have so much money. But where does the mindset come from? It comes from, well, if we give it to you, then we're going to have to give it to these people maybe you don't like very much, which nowadays is immigrants, people who've entered here through legal pathways or not. It's immigrants and people who aren't white necessarily. And that's to me is the root of all this, of this question of like, well, why is it okay in the military but not okay in society at large? Well, because it's a wedge. It keeps us apart. It splits the working class up. It pits the working class against each other. It does create this kind of like perverted, disgusting competition between us beyond what capitalism requires. Of course, you know, educate yourself, be smarter, more efficient, whatever, that's different. But it creates this like, well, if we all have healthcare, then I can't compete on being healthier. I can't, and it's like it all just kind of in America, especially, it is down to this idea, these racist systems that are so abstracted away from actually saying, making references to specific races. They've all been financialized and all that stuff that now we get things like, well, we can't afford to pay for healthcare for everybody when we have one guy who has $1 trillion. I think we can afford $500 billion to, it wouldn't even be that much, but you know what I'm saying? I think we can afford healthcare for everybody if we've got one guy with that much money.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I will point out that that guy who has that much money made that much money in this country as starting out as an illegal immigrant. He was working without a work visa for quite some time. His whole PayPal spiel was definitely illegal. And it allowed him to succeed to a point where people are leaning on him to save us money, which made him rich. I think that's questionable all in its own, and you don't have to have much common sense to fucking figure out how that happened. Um, but what you were just going over, it reminds me of Margaret Thatcher's stupid ass quote about the problem with socialism is you eventually run out of other people's money. That's fucking taxation. Yeah, I mean, how does anyone see it as anything otherwise? I mean, we will run out of our own money if we stop paying fucking taxes. It's not like socialism is dipping into each other's pockets. It's not like socialism is limiting people on becoming wealthy. It doesn't mean you can't be rich. It means you can't be poor. Yeah, I mean that's it, plain and simple. It means that you're not going to have to worry about this health care. You're not going to have to worry about food. You're not going to have to worry about housing if you were like us, born not wealthy. It's just the plain and simple truth. Which leads me into another lie about our country and it being a meritocracy. Within the Marine Corps, merit, it still mattered. And here's what is kind of where people usually get it wrong. The Marine Corps wasn't equal outcomes. It was equal starting conditions. So everyone got boots, everyone got training, everyone got healthcare, and everyone got fed. Um, what happened after that? It really depended on your effort, your leadership, and sometimes some luck. I mean, we all know that, whether your command liked you or not. I had that issue quite a bit. So, my question is, do you think giving everyone the same foundation makes competition stronger or weaker?
Yeah, I had a question about like what do you mean by competition in what sense?
Competition within capitalism, competition within our country, finding a job, finding good housing, becoming maybe not wealthy, but well-to-do, having everything that you need and not wanting, which
Yeah.
is just so profound within this capitalistic,
Mhm.
competitive structure that we have built for ourselves over the time. Or I would say that the rich have fought to build over this time.
I think it lets more people compete. I don't know if making competition weaker or stronger is how I would characterize it. It allows more people to compete. It brings up the value of the labor pool. It brings up uh by bring up I mean it increases the value of the labor pool. It gives everybody, because this we're talking in the context of like this of our economy as it is now. And yeah, I mean, it would make yeah, competition being stronger. I don't know. Arguably not. I mean, I think competition being so intense is it kind of puts healthcare on the table as a thing to compete over. But if you're talking about we want as many people to be able to compete, which I think as I'm talking out loud here or thinking out loud here, like competition is a code word for like being able to participate in the economy on an equal footing to everyone else.
Yes.
Um, and so I think from that, angle, we definitely if we can cut out if we can just put a floor, I was about to say if we can raise the floor, but if we can just put a floor on the economy, anything, any floor would be fine that isn't death. Somewhere above death, that would be cool, but that's our floor right now. I think that's one of the things that drives me nuts. It's like, well, if you are a die-in-the-wool capitalist and everybody should just like I believe in meritocracy, et cetera, then cool. Like let more people into the labor pool. But I think these rich people, like they don't understand that there are people who they don't believe that there are people who could otherwise contribute to society and push society forward toward a more, Star Trekian, utopian future. There are people who are left out of the economy because there's no floor. You're
Yeah.
not just I mean, I was, my dad was a cop. It was just me and my dad. He made okay money in the 80s and 90s, but like we certainly weren't rich, but we weren't broke either. But like, but there were people who had it way worse than me, and they have it way worse in a way that I can't even conceive of. And if we can just put some floor above death, in American society, I think that would make a much more competitive labor market globally.
It reminds me of something that was said on one of our previous episodes. Everyone's telling everyone else to pull themselves up by their bootstraps while half of us are sitting here in fucking flip-flops. So, sorry, I just wanted to put in my 2 cents. Lou, Zach, you guys go on ahead.
Lou, I'll give you the floor with this one.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's not much I can add to this that Matt didn't really kind of already knock out of the park. Like, um, I mean, I'm in agreement. Like, if you have to like decide where sort of this starting base is of where you're gonna the level that you're gonna if we're talking about leveling out the playing field.
Hmm.
Regardless of doing that, I mean, of course, you're always going to have some people that are, you've got that starting line here. All right, take a few steps back. If one of your parents was addicted to drugs, bam, take a step back. Take a step back if there was violence in your household, take another step. So there are always going to be factors that are sort of beyond people's control. But yeah, I think that this is where, again, some of these programs and these socialist programs can even take those people that are further back from the starting line than, just kind of your baseline white bread American, even lower middle class white bread American. Um, I kind of consider myself sort of in that class of I was raised, with two parents and a good home, loving home. We didn't have a lot of money or a lot of sort of material things, but but I didn't have to struggle with, am I going to eat, or is my dad going to beat the shit out of me because I spilled the paint in the garage or some shit like that. You know what I mean? Like, or whatever. Um, so there are all those factors where I think there could be substantial programs that come in and also pull some of those people up uh, to the starting line, so that there is sort of a even playing field. Like I was gonna compare this to the 300 PFT, right? Like and this is more of like on a personal basis. Like, right, you said like we're all given the same baseline stuff to succeed and everything. Look, bottom line is, even in my best shape, I'm definitely not there right now, but even in my best shape, there's no way in hell I'm doing 20 fucking pull-ups. And I've worked my ass off on that shit. All right. So, but I was damn fucking good at my job. And I know a shit ton of 300 PFTers throughout my time in the Marine Corps that were complete ass at their jobs, right? But they had some sort of competitive edge there that helped them out. And I think when we harness people's strengths, we really can push them forward. And everyone has strengths, right? Like there are things that each one of us are uh, better at than the other. That we can also just help each other out and again get everybody up to that starting line, so that as a society we're moving forward, sort of as Matt talked about in that sort of utopian Star Trekian fucking thing. There's no reason that we shouldn't already have flying cars, like legitimate flying cars.
They're coming.
Zach, do you have anything you want to add here?
Well,
In terms of,
the trillionaire definitely says they're coming, right?
oh, he
Sooner or later.
does.
He says a lot
Well,
of shit.
Matt and Lou and even you, Kevin, did a great point. In my head, I always told my students when we would talk about these concepts of putting everyone on the same level playing field to start off with is a great concept. And in my head, I guess the optimistic side of me, I would like to think that competition would be stronger because if we are technically starting out on the same level playing field, everybody, no matter what, when they reach a certain age, is given X, Y, and Z, no matter what, and we go from there to either further push ourselves to seek what we want or to lessen ourselves, then that comes down to the proof that it's the individual that decided their own fate. And we kind of bring in the reality of this concept of America. It's like we've always been taught that America's the place where you can be anything that you want to be. And if you're given that same starting ground when it's a certain time, then that expels us to a level that, hell, all of us would probably agree with that we can try. I don't know how well it would work. I don't know. I'm just a former history teacher from bumfuck North Carolina, but in my head, I'd like to think that you'd really see which of us as true Americans really want to make this country what it could be, which of us want to try to make ourselves the best that we can be, make our friends around us the best that we can be. And I see that now to a small extent. Um, my buddy that got me the job of the company I work for literally looked me in the eye and he said, "Man," he said, "I want you to be a millionaire." He said, "I want you to make as much fucking money as you can from this place and then do whatever the fuck you want to do for the rest of your life." And he said, "I want to do that for all my friends." And I was like, well, if we have that mindset as a society where we want to help each other grow, help this country grow, the things that we could do, and I think a lot of that does go back to putting us on the same foundation for competition of who really wants it, who wants to push it to that far, who's willing to take that step.
Absolutely. And in my handy dandy notebook, not to steal from Blue's Clues, but yeah, I've written in here that competition breeds progress, but not letting some people run the race limits that progress. And not giving people the opportunity to cure cancer has probably stunted us in curing fucking cancer. You know what I'm saying? Um, and that could be said for anything. If we
Well, the
all
fact
have,
that one of these, I like what Lou was saying about like, okay, well, okay, here's the starting line. Now, if you come from a single parent household, take a step back. One of the things that makes you take a bunch of steps back, or if the race has already started, you're in your 20s or 30s or 40s, and you're already running the race, one of the things that makes you stop is, well, I want to have a kid. I want to have a family.
Mhm.
I want to be a human being, do the thing that we're, I mean, supposed to be doing. And like in America, in the United States of America, that essentially takes you out of the race or makes you pick between being an effective parent and continuing your career because of this stranglehold that having employer-based healthcare uh puts on people. We can't there's so many straightforward policies we could do to make that would even that are short of healthcare for everybody. There are just common sense policies that we could put in place to let people keep competing. And again, I'm presupposing that a capitalist economy such as we have now is fine. We can let people keep competing without threatening their career and stuff like that. And it's insane that parenthood and raising a family is runs contrary to having a career.
Yeah.
And we all know people who like, oh, well, I've got a family, yeah, but you've made sacrifices. Somebody in your family has made a lot of sacrifices so that you could continue your career. Whether you acknowledge it or not, somebody has made a lot of critical sacrifices. Maybe it was you and you don't recognize it. It was almost certainly your kid. It was 100% your kids have made sacrifices so that you could continue your career. They made sacrifices. You made sacrifices. You put them in a position where they were making sacrifices they never signed up to make because of the lack of support that we get from taxpayer funded programs.
Absolutely. Well, with that, we're just going to take a little cutaway here. I'm going to hand it off to Lou for our goat of the week. I think you'll all enjoy this week's goat of the week.
Yes,
Take it away, Lou.
here we are, week 2 of Goat of the Week. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This week's Goat of the Week, Goat of the Week, Goat of the Week. Bah! This week's Goat of the Week is Zach's legs. Pull it up real quick. There they are. Hey there. Hey there. Ever want to question your sexuality? Take a
Ooh.
look at Zach's well-defined alabaster gams. Those things will have you asking yourself, Taylor Swift who? But now, some of you homophobes out there might say, Lou, you're gay. You damn right. I'm happy as hell to list Zach's legs in the hallway of goatness. Built for strength, but some would also say pleasure, Zach's legs are the reason why you should be proud to be an American, because he has the right to let those things breathe. God bless America. God bless Zach's legs, the goat of the week.
So let me give you guys some context on this. This
Bravo.
was my freshman year of college, and the education group I was a part of was always volunteered at this like polar plunge for charity. And so several of us got together and volunteered, and they were like, we need a theme. And so it was, so this is Big Dan right here, but we had three Dans in college. We had Big Dan, Little Dan, and Bearded Dan. Remind me to tell you a story about Bearded Dan later. Holy Christ, the stories I could tell. Um, and it was four girls, I think. And they're like, well, let's do The Bachelor because, super popular, 2011. And then it's like, or 2012-ish, whenever that was. And they're like, oh, hell yeah. And they're like, well, let's do it a twist though. Let's put you in a dress, Zach, and you'll get the final rose. And I was like, that's a good idea. I said, I like that idea. And so we do all this preparation. Like I literally I have a bra on that I stuffed. Okay, like and it was a pink bra, if I'm not mistaken. We went and found the shortest dress possible from Goodwill because I wanted to be a slut. Okay, I was ready to throw ass. Oh, I'm not. And I found the like most in my head prostitute heels I could think of because I wanted to show out. So we walk down from up here behind these trees, and I'm in full garb trying to walk in these hills, which is fucking hard. Shout out to women and men and any kind of drag people that can do drag and walk in hills. Props to you, because that was hard as hell. But as I'm walking down the street, there's this guy with a big boom box that's just vibing, and he's on the other side of the street. He sees me, and from a distance, I am very, very much a female. And he immediately comes over and starts catcalling. Gets behind me. He's like, "Damn, girl, you got some nice legs." Well, I turned around. He goes, "Hey, yo, dude, what the fuck?" He said, "You better get up out my face." I said, "Dude, you hit on me." I said, "You're the one that came over here." So we we get out on this platform deck, and I remember vividly that they were breaking ice that day because literally the water in Boone at the time had froze, and so the water's 32 degrees. It was miserable. And as we're up there and we do the bachelorette thing, once again from a distance, I look like a girl, and so I get the rose, and I like put it in my mouth all seductively, and everybody in the crowd's like, "Aw!" And so then Dan picks me up in his arms because we're gonna now take the polar plunge, and this is the funny part. Can you guys let me make sure you guys can see the next picture because this is where shit goes off the rails fast. It was so funny. I didn't tell anybody I was going to do this when we jumped in the water. Before we jumped in, I decided to take my wig off. And as soon as I did that, you just hear this utter "oh" from the crowd as they realize, like, this guy's face always cracks me up right here that they realize it's a dude that just gave a rose to another dude. So, and his face is just like just revolted. And everybody else is like, you got some people laughing because it's funny, but at the time, it was not very popular, I guess, for me to be in drag. And so we jump in this water, and my heels are still in that pond, duck pond in Boone. I never got those heels back. They came out. I came out like a drowned rat. I was cold and miserable, but it was one of the funniest experiences of my life. So thanks for giving my legs a shout out, Lou. Mwah.
That's
I have
amazing.
I half expect you getting out of that water like in Ace Ventura when Einhorn, like
Oh, I
AKA
have
Ray
a. If
Finkel,
you guys want to see a photograph of
climbs
me
out.
out of the water, just dripping wet and miserable, I'll pull it up. I have
Yeah,
no shame on
I
this. I used
think
to
we
show
have
this.
to.
I showed this shit to my students when I would teach, because like I would always like just anytime somebody made a comment of like, "Oh, you're gay," or that's because like, no, 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 we don't do that. It's like, let me show you like how untoxic I am, and they're like, "Whoa, you wore a dress?" It's like, hell yeah. That was the third time I wore a dress in my life, not the first. Oh yeah, this. Oh, here we go. I won't say anybody's names. That way they can't say anything. But here we are, folks. This is me post polar plunge, miserable as could be. Um, but it was all worth it. It all went to kids. Just it was a good time. Just bam. You can see the outline of
Ah,
the pink bra.
You look so unhappy.
Oh, dude, I was pissed, pissed. Yeah, I know all the people in the background there. They were part of our program. Oh yeah, I was pissed. I'm pretty sure you can see where my dress is like so like riding up my ass and everything. It was that was really uncomfortable. I'm not gonna lie.
You should have freeballed.
Ah, if it wouldn't have been cold, Kevin, because I don't think you've been able to see anything, I would have.
That is fucking beautiful. Well, with that, that's our goat of the week.
yes, it is.
It's the best segment of the show, I think. All right, so it's going to be hard to move on from that, but all right. Thank you very much, Lou, for the goat of the week, and thank you, Zach, for giving the disclaimer and explanation of what was going on. Unfortunately, we lost Zach. There was a power outage where he is, and
He's still alive.
he is still alive, but unfortunately, the pizza he was cooking at the time of the power outage is not going to be fully done. So let's all, give a moment of silence for Zach's Pizza. And we can just move on with our next topic, which is we already trust the government more than we admit. And I don't like this topic. I wrote this topic, but it hurts to say that. But if we think about everything the government trusted us with, whether it was weapons, aircraft, medical care, housing, retirement, education, it was billions of dollars of equipment. You know, somehow people say the government couldn't possibly be trusted to help people see a doctor. It's an interesting contradiction. So you guys, why do you think Americans trust the government to train Marines and fight wars, but not to run healthcare or other public services?
Um, my view, real quick, is I think that most Americans, and I'm just assuming on this, it's just my opinion on it, separate government and military, right? Like when they think government, right, they're thinking politicians, Congress, the sleazy politician or whatever. And then when you think military, you think troops, you think that. And so while I don't want to say that Americans are stupid and don't know that the military's run by the government, but or controlled by the government, but I think that there's just sort of subliminally in their minds like a separation between the two, where we trust the military, but because tried and true honor, courage, commitment. But then over here, these dirty, sleazy politicians can go to hell. I think that's the mentality that most Americans probably have.
Well said.
Yeah, I mean so I maybe this well how I conceive of this topic is that I kind of, again, not to be, you know, oppositionally defiant here,
Please
but
do.
the I kind of reject. I mean, I don't think it's a bad framing, like about trusting the government and stuff, but I try to be disciplined about how I think about questions like this. What does trusting the government mean? And like, what happens inside? What do we mean when we say the government? Because what we're saying is, on paper, our government is a collection of people like us who live in another city who vote on policies to make things better for people. And so, another way to phrase the question that comports better with how I think about stuff like this is like, we already trust taxpayers, our fellow taxpayers, to support policies that do these things. We know that we trust that our voting public is not going to vote to take away or vote to make the military do something bad, where something bad is, I don't know, use your imagination. We've gotten plenty of examples over the last couple of years of the federal government going awry. But at least when it comes to like healthcare, um, it's like in the UK, they've got the National Health Service, which on paper seems great, but it is a football. It's a political soccer ball. Sorry. No, it's like a political, you know, football that they pass back and forth about funding and like, oh, we're going to withdraw funding to the point that NHS isn't actually serving people. Now people hate NHS. Now we're going to we're going to privatize it, or we want to privatize it and so forth. Um, and that's a case of like where, well, it's kind of like the prisoner's dilemma or something. The taxpayers all lost faith in each other. Like there's no culture about like the NHS is a public good. Um, Whereas the military, we can't cut the military budget to save our lives. I mean, F-35 and all that. But to me, it's a question of like, what is their taxpayer effort to do? And it would really be helpful if we stop thinking of the government as having given birth to society when it's the opposite. Society is the parent of the government. And it really is just enacting our will. that's how it should be, and that's how it is. We just get distorted through the media and everything like that. But anyway, um, so I don't like thinking about whether we trust the government or not because I don't think that really helps clarify things. It's more about whether we're going to trust our fellow voters to not vote to somebody in who wants to do something crazy and self-defeating with healthcare or with the military or with any other kind of public policy. And we're seeing that now where the voting public has, I don't even need to articulate it, but like no more USAID is insane.
Yeah.
Um, it's insane. Hundreds of thousands of people have died. And we blew it up. So yeah.
So just in good faith, really quick, I'll say that when I wrote that question, I was kind of thinking pre and post the Omnibus Budget Reconciliation Act of 1981, where a lot of the social services were cut by Ronald Reagan, and a lot of this responsibility that I was referring to was within the government. And now people would argue that the government couldn't handle that. They would argue that the government couldn't facilitate that, and that the taxes, our taxes, would go up in order to pay for it. When those social services that were canceled, the taxes did not go down. We still paid the same amount, if not more. So all of that money is just going to nothing right now. So that's kind of where I framed it. I really appreciate your answer. That was a very well thought out answer, and I'm glad you pointed that out. Um, but yeah, I just wanted to throw that little tidbit out there because yeah, I think a lot of the distrust that I was kind of referring to was in that a lot of people think the government shouldn't be responsible for that, but at the same time, they think the government should be responsible for nonsensical bullshit these days that they absolutely shouldn't. It's unconstitutional. It's kind of gone, just down one of those runaway ramps that you see on the highway.
Yeah, I mean, just to kind of like, there's this old, well, it's still in practice. Like this, I think it was like Grover Norquist who said, we want a government small enough to drown in the bathtub.
hmm
And like maybe the really rich people want that,
Yeah.
but we don't want that.
No.
Drowning the government means drowning society. Like that's what we're talking about. And like we want government that can do things. The government can administer the hell out of healthcare and an education compensation system. A government, I'm talking about the GI Bill and all that stuff. They can administer these things. They can administer TRICARE. Yeah, they hand it off to private industry, and industry has the government contract and all that, private public partnerships. Those are fine. The government knows how to do this stuff. Like Scott Galloway, who has many, I don't agree with him on everything, but one of the things he says that I like, I don't agree with him on a lot of important stuff, but one of the things he says that I likes is like the American government is the most effective organization in human history. It simply is. It has done so many incredible things. USAID just being one among many, putting a man on the moon, the space program and all that sort of stuff. It is extremely effective, filled with it was filled with competent and professional civil servants who knew how to run bureaucracies. Of course, we've gutted that now, the IRS and all that. But it is very effective, and not trusting it is a campaign by, you know, I know, we're not trying to be overtly political, but like it is the product of a campaign, a 50 or 60-year long campaign by right-wing radical evangelical fundamentalists, or however you want to characterize it, by somebody to destroy faith that the American government can actually do anything. When it is actually the most effective thing, the most effective organization humanity has created, at least dollar for dollar, let's say, or unit of currency per unit of currency. And I truly believe that. And it's all just misinformation. It's trash. We can do this. We can just expand TRICARE to work for everybody and call that Trump care. I don't give a crap. Like
Yeah.
just make it happen.
Well, remember he had that
Like,
manila envelope with the answer to Obamacare all those years ago. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Luke.
so I got a quote for y'all. See if you guys can guess who said it. The nine most terrifying words in the English language are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
That was Reagan, 100%. I
Yep.
remember
Do you
that
know
speech. Yeah.
do you know what year he said it?
No,
1980.
1960. Oh.
Flip it. 1986.
Hmm.
All
86.
right.
Yeah.
This motherfucker had been president for 6 years at this point. It's like,
Oh,
so
wow.
you're quite literally talking shit about your own fucking administration, your own people. You are the head. You are the CEO. The president is the CEO of the corporate, right? Or am I wrong on that?
No, Nancy Reagan was the C.
Yeah. Uh, what's the other
No, he's
quote?
definitely the chief executive. Yeah, the
He
president is definitely the
absolutely
chief
was.
executive.
Yeah.
Yeah, government is not the solution to our problem. Government is the problem. That's another quote from our beautiful uh, former actor president who played president. Um, so yeah, I mean, you're saying, I mean, like Matt was saying, like it's definitely a design propaganda machine to for people to not trust the government because you have members of that government, in my opinion, that have a lot of outside money in their pockets that want you to think that
Yeah.
wants you to think the government can't do something or take care of something because guess what? Then their little private contractors get that contract and ching ching, they get the little kickbacks. So if yeah, that the whole idea like privatization. I mean, I'll give you an example here in Virginia. Um, without getting too crazy on it, there was I think all in all, it was a project. They were redoing the tunnels in the Tidewater area that go from downtown Portsmouth to downtown Norfolk, and the project was going to cost somewhere around 90 billion, something like that. I can't remember the exact cost, but um, so this private contractor comes in and says, okay, well, we'll do this, but you're going to pay us. You're going to pay us in tolls, which the tunnels before were all free because it was government taken care of. But now this company comes in, and now it's $5 one way to
Yeah.
go through a tunnel, which completely crippled the city of Portsmouth in the
That's
sense that
California roads. Yeah.
people don't want to. Because for those that don't know the layout of Tidewater, uh, Portsmouth and the southern part of the seven cities of Tidewater, that tunnel leads to both Norfolk and Virginia Beach, the larger economies in the area, the larger tourist attractions. And, Portsmouth kind of would feed off of that, the restaurant industry in the downtown area. And by taxing people on that, it stopped people from even like, I'm not going to go over to Portsmouth to go to some restaurant and it's going to I'm going to be $10 to do it. Fuck that. Like I'll just go to a restaurant out here in Norfolk or Virginia Beach or whatever. But anyways, so they have this contract that goes all the way to like 2050 something to pay themselves off. If you think about how many people like actually do have to go through that tunnel and all the traffic that the shipyards have that go through that tunnel, they've paid themselves back and then some already. And that was just like 10, 15 years ago that this was enacted. And it's shitty contracts, dude. And you can't help but think like there were a lot of kickbacks. I know that our governor at the time, Mr. McDonald, got in trouble for some things like that. So I don't think it's too far off for me to or anybody to kind of assume that some shady stuff was going on allegedly, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Kind of building off of what both of you said, in Matt's words with our drowning government. That's what I was referring to earlier with the wet Constitution and how easy it is to poke holes through wet paper. It's really thin and it's really fragile, and you'll have things like Lou's talking about, where people are taking advantage of it, and they're taking advantage of us much more than they should be allowed to. So, having trust in the government, that's kind of what I was referring to in that, if the government was made of us rather than a certain class of people, we would be able to believe in it, if we hadn't put all of our trust into the rich and the job creators, as they put it, we would be able to lean on it and have it as an organization of us rather of them. So that's
Trickle economics doesn't work down. It doesn't work.
Reagan himself admitted
I,
that bullshit didn't work.
I thought if we give the billionaires more money, they're gonna, pay their workers more.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
So,
mean that's
go
the
ahead.
whole idea of like serfdom and nobility and like those
Mhm.
kinds, like those old government ways of doing government that we killed everybody who believed that that was good. We cut off their heads because it's bad, because
Yeah.
it doesn't, everything falls apart when all of the wealth is accumulated at the top. There's nobody is up, like they got a summer in the Hamptons or in the Canary Islands or wherever the hell. And it's like they're not running a charity. Like they literally don't, but that is also like a cynical statement that people make. Like they're literally not. And it just doesn't work like that. And taxation is how you rein this stuff in. It's how you keep a check on stuff. If we were flush, our economy is huge. If we were flush because we were collecting taxes in a sensible way, I mean, not even anything radical. Keep the capitalism, keep the businesses, keep the competition. Just tax, put a cap on maximum wealth. Everything else accrues back to the people. We can pay for benefits. Mindsets would be totally different. Instead of the scarcity mindset, it would be a real abundance mindset, not the buzzwordy thing from last year or whatever, but like a real abundance mindset. Like we can pay for these things. We can pay for the like F-35 for 30 years or whatever to completely fail. Like we can 100% pay for these things, but it is this mindset of like, well, the government is this separate thing from us. It's not of the people, by the people, for the people. It's this supernatural thing. I don't know how people think of it is bizarre to me.
Yeah. We need to start with auditing the federal government. But um I think this is a perfect segue into our next topic is the Marine Corps, it was not perfect, but neither is any system. So I'd say let's be honest, the military healthcare, it has its problems. The chow
Mhm.
hall was not five-star dining. The barracks there could be pretty fucking rough. With asbestos and black mold. The government bureaucracy could drive you insane. And, I would say no one's pretending the military is some perfect socialist utopia. But the point is something bigger. We accepted imperfections because we believed that the mission was worth investing in. So my question is, what lessons from military life do you think America could realistically apply without pretending the core was perfect?
Um, I This is a tough one. I would say probably the accountability of leaders would be one, maybe, where you do have sort of like ingrained in the system of the Marine Corps a level of checks and balances as far as leadership goes from top to bottom, right? If your staff sergeant's a piece of shit and you can't get anything done with them, guess what you can do? You can go up the next level, complain, put in a formal complaint or whatever you need to do,
Request mass, yeah.
request mass to fucking get something changed, right? That obviously this leader is not doing their job uh, correctly. Especially if you have multiple Marines saying the same thing. And so there should be more of a sort of check, like better way of holding our leaders accountable on the people level. We shouldn't have to like wait. for somebody to be caught in some scandal to oust them before their terms are up. If they're not doing a good fucking job, there should be. I don't know if I'm. Am I missing anything on that?
No,
If
I'm
I
true.
am at any point, just stop me.
All I think about is how much of an old boys network the officer ranks definitely are.
Oh
Um,
yeah,
you know what I mean? And they close ranks just like any other good old boy network and stuff like that. This is exactly what Kevin was talking about, though. Like, it's definitely not perfect, but there are
right,
pathways at least, and there are
right.
pathways in our government too. But yeah, that's what I got to say about what you just said, Lou.
Yeah, I think it's really not necessarily of like whether or not this actually works. I'm sure it's a lot better. I hope it's a lot better than it was when we were all in. I know for certain things, it definitely is. Um, but yeah, no, I'm not. I'm not in any way, shape, or form saying that that the Marine Corps leadership structure doesn't do some shady things or hasn't done some shady things at times, like covering things up or sweeping things under the rug, or maybe slaps on the wrist when it should be more severe, say court martial, fucking NJP, something like that. A lot of times, like you said, the good old boy network of, well, we're not going to ruin his career because he did X, Y, and Z to these little peons in their view. Uh, and again, this is all. I'm just saying this in uh, for some cases that have come out
Mhm.
publicly. So this is not me making shit up or saying that these things don't happen. But I think that if we could apply the principles of Marine Corps leadership, that's where we we could benefit as a society more, and having that sort of
Yeah,
the creed of it,
Some JJ did Ty
that's
Buckle.
exactly
JJ did Ty
yeah, that's
Buckle, man.
exactly what I was gonna say. Is that
Yeah,
to me, the answer to this question is the values. Like
yeah,
I'm not, if there's any like currently enlisted people watching this, I am not saying, just like Lewis, like, let me add all the caveats, right? Like, I'm not saying it was perfect. I'm not saying it was even good most of the time, but something that was, at least in me, maybe I was just extra impressionable or something. I don't know. But like, I really one of the things where I acclimated really well to the Marine Corps, and there weren't many, but one of the things was like this adherence to there is a right and wrong, there is a code of conduct, a code, whether it's honor, courage, commitment, or never leave the Marine behind, or you fight for the Marine beside you. Like those codes to me, like they meant something, about being honest, about showing up, about having moral courage, doing the right thing when nobody's looking, doing the right thing, especially when it's hard. And I hear politicians, our contemporaries, saying things that undermine what should be commonly held values, making excuses for Nixon, um, making up lies about like blood libels about immigrant communities. And it's like, what the flip? Like, what is happening? Like, how it doesn't compute to me. Like, I can't wrap my head around it. And it's doing so, but beyond my personal troubles with it, to get back to the topic, like, the thing that is punching holes in our, oh, I just accidentally tied that back, like punching holes in our system, punching holes in the Constitution, is this total lack of loyalty to the things that we're supposed to be embodying or supposed to be representing as Americans. You know, tr- Life and liberty, and then, but also like treating people with respect and uh, being honest and being truthful and not destroying the shared. I mean, sometimes it's good to tear down the stories when it's for when you're bringing more people into to be included, but like to make excuses for Nixon and to talk about immigrant communities, like they're eating household animals and stuff like that, and sending ice and all these things are only destructive. They're only destructive. They're only destructive to the fabric of what we're trying to do. They only destroy the system. And I do see the point. The point is to destroy the system. Um, and that's what's happening right now. And it's like nobody's going to trust the government because we see now how easily an institution like USAID can be crumpled up and thrown away for nothing over claims of fraud, and people support that. I sorry, I got into a rant, but
Good.
No, keep going.
we are lacking core values in our country that we maybe had at least in the 80s and 90s and up until maybe 2000, the 80s and 90s. Let's stop there.
Yeah, I mean, uh, injustice, what is it? Injustice for one is injustice against all, right? Like
Hmm.
this idea, which is also fucking illegal, some of the shit that ICE was doing, and that's not fucking opinion. That's actually what was fucking happening. Of people just let me see your papers, stopping you on the fucking street. No, I don't need to show you shit, motherfucker. I don't need to show you any fucking ID. But that's me and my white privilege fucking saying shit like that because that would never happen to me. They're not walking up to my Irish looking ass and being like, "Hey, motherfucker, like, let me see your papers. You don't look like you belong here," type shit, which is basically what the fuck they're saying. Anytime they
Yeah.
stop somebody on the street or go to fucking Home Depot, uh, they're literally reading into stereotypes and then actually acting on those things in an illegal fucking way by violating people's constitutional fucking rights. You don't
Yeah.
have if they have no fucking probable cause, legitimate probable cause to fucking stop and ask you questions, they cannot fucking do it.
Yeah.
That's illegal. And they just do that shit. And like Matt, like we've been talking about, it's just the simple fucking values of like how wrong that is. And I don't give a fuck if you run ICE or an ICE agent, you know it's fucking wrong. And the fact that you don't do anything about it just to collect your little fucking paycheck and move ahead, go to fucking hell.
Yeah.
Period.
One thing I'll point out really quick
Wake the
is,
fuck up, do better. Be a better fucking human,
yeah,
be a better fucking American. Because you're not. And you
yeah.
fucking say you're fucking the patriots and all that shit. You're the absolute opposite of that.
Yeah.
You're that motherfucking ponytail motherfucker on the Patriot.
Yeah.
Fucking
Oh,
see the
Gibson.
farm for that stupid little boy. He
Oh
died.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you're that fucking guy.
Yeah.
You think you're the hero in this situation, but you're not. You're fucking cosplaying hero.
Yeah.
One common misconception that I feel I need to point out is that a lot of American citizens will argue that constitutional rights only apply to American citizens. The Constitution, by fucking definition, only exists to protect us from the government. That is what it is. That is why it was written. That's why it was created. That's why it's amended, because the government finds new loopholes every now and then, and we need to protect ourselves from them. The Constitution does not only apply to citizens, it does not only apply to legal immigrants, it doesn't only apply to anyone, it applies to anyone on American soil. It is a protection from the government. It applies to literally everyone. You can be undocumented, you can be illegal, you can be whoever the fuck you want to be in America, and those constitutional rights apply to you. It is not a limit to us, it is a limit to them. And they have framed it, they've spent countless dollars trying to frame it as otherwise, and it simply is not that. It is a restriction on the government. It is a restriction on the government's reach. It is a restriction on them toward us. And as you said, ICE has abused it wholly, and MAGA, they all support it. You know, that poem that was written in World War II, they came for the socialists. They came, yeah, I'm not going to recite the whole fucking thing, but that is a perfect example of what is going on right now. You give up your rights, you give up those protections, you give up the meaning of the Constitution, then you fuck yourself. In the long run, it's going to come back on you. after they're done with these people and these people and these people and these people, you're next. You are fucking next. Your rights, whatever you feel like standing up for, they're gonna come after it, whether it's guns or fucking your bumper stickers or your stupid ass made in China American flags. They're gonna come for you.
Yeah.
Speaking of license plates, for
Yeah.
those of anybody listening or anybody out there that is don't tread on me or has that license plate and you fucking support ICE, go and change it to tread on me more, daddy.
Yep.
Yeah, step on me, daddy.
Little snake
It's
in a
fucking
MAGA hat.
ridiculous.
Yeah,
Fucking
it
ridiculous.
is.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
so yeah, I think overall the answer to this question is they talk about values and American values. Let's actually fucking know what those are and do better as far as applying those to our everyday lives and how we treat people.
So to be fair, that's the whole fight, really, is who gets to decide what the values are. And we've, in my view, we've gotten into this spot because we, the way we were doing politics wasn't working for people. People got poor, benefits got removed, life got worse for many people, life got way harder for a lot of people. And instead of addressing the flaws in our imperfect system, we've got a generation of politicians, mostly the ones who are going to die in the next 5 or 10 years of old age, who just like, to hell, like, we're just going to blow it up. Like, it's not perfect, so we're going to blow it up. And if I don't know if that's a lesson from the military, but like, the imperfectness doesn't, you're not going to blow it up. Just, well, maybe in the military you would blow something up, but you're not going to blow up the system because it's imperfect. But that seems to be exactly what we're doing. um yeah.
No, and you're right. And there is kind of this fight for values, right? Like who gets to decide? I know there's been some people from your state, Matt, that've been up very vocal about what the separation of church and state actually means, and oh, just
Hmm.
because it was one sentence in one of Thomas Jefferson's many letters, it's like, nah, he fucking talked about that pretty frequently. It's just because the phrase itself might have only been mentioned once or twice. He still talked about this pretty frequently. Um, and if I'm not mistaken, it's still embedded in the First Amendment, right? Like
It is
as far
not.
as
It is a,
religious freedom. And
yeah,
so
freedom from the establishment of religion. Yeah.
right, and for that, for me, and in itself, is what we should go on for values is the rights of the people, right? The Constitution itself, the Bill of Rights, and those are our values. Those are our
Yeah.
established values. We need to adhere to those and not let any outside interference, whether that's from church entities or anything else, get in the way of that. To be moral, you don't have to go to fucking church every day, or go every Sunday. See, I think that's where a lot of people get this shit twisted. They think that, you know, non-religious people are just a bunch of godless fucking heathens who have no values, no morals whatsoever. Yet I see a lot of my atheist friends, you know, helping charities out, giving their time to charities, fucking really being active in the community, uh, and not then posting about it on social media. And look at how great I am. Here, homeless guy, you want a sandwich? Smile. That type of shit. Um, yeah. Uh, Again, I think since we're talking about values, we should start there and end there, actually, really. But um, yeah, I don't think it's up to any one party, any one person, or any one belief system to decide how we as Americans are going to, or how we should behave. That's already been written.
And that's exactly why if anyone asks me my political affiliations, before I say I'm a socialist, before I say I'm progressive, before I say I'm anything, I will always say I'm a constitutionalist first. I fully believe in the Constitution and I believe in the protections it provides. That is what I swore an oath to. That is what I served. People that thank me for my service, it's like I didn't serve you, I served the Constitution. And, through whatever pathway you want to look, yeah, I may
The
have served,
byproduct of it.
I may have served you in some offhand way, but yeah, I was there for the
The fuck
Constitution.
about you.
What you said about atheism, I've been asked, I'm an atheist, and I've been asked before, if you're an atheist, what keeps you from just going out and killing people? It's like, bitch, it's my conscience. What keeps you from going out and killing people? Is it like the promise of some eternal happiness after you fucking die? Is that the only thing that keeps you from going out and killing people and robbing them? Like, what the fuck? What are your morals based off of? Because mine are treat others as you would like to be treated. You know what I'm saying? Mine are based off of judge not lest ye be judged. My morals are based off of a mutual agreement of society. I don't understand what these Christian nationalists are basing their fucking morals off of, if not just a mutual agreement to exist. It has to be just the promise of eternal happiness after, or money, or I don't know what the fuck it is. Like, what keeps them, honestly, what
Yeah.
keeps them from killing everyone?
That's
It's
funny. You quoted the Bible twice to describe your morality system.
oh man.
I can quote the scripture. I grew up Southern Baptist, man.
Same. I mean, I feel like okay, I'm not even gonna go there, but
Go there.
same.
Please go there. Please go
I'm
there.
just saying, I if people on the right really wanted to make a Christian nation, they're going about it the wrong way because it's not that Jesus dude said a lot of stuff that doesn't really agree with what they're talking about, and it's disgusting to watch people
Yeah.
jump through hoops to try to make it like, oh well, actually Jesus wasn't talking about immigrants. Well, Jesus wasn't really a refugee. Well, man, please, bro. Like
Yeah.
I've read the same Bible. Like I've read the Bible many a Sunday was spent sitting in the whatever it's called, the main vestibula where they gave the sermon, like reading the Bible because I was trying to zone out and I was bored. And so I was reading, whatever the Bible opened to that day. But yeah, the fact that you quoted the Bible twice to describe your morality system as an atheist is kind of like a main thing that we miss nowadays. It's like I wish Christians were more like Jesus. That would be amazing. But I think there's plenty of Christians out there who are saying the same thing. James Talerico here in Texas is one of them, but you know, because it's just objectively true. At least the Jesus I grew up with in again the 80s and 90s was not the Jesus they're talking about nowadays, that's for sure.
Absolutely not. No.
so was Jesus a socialist or no?
Of his time, yeah. The dude hung out with hookers and crooks. I mean,
Right?
I mean,
Provided free healthcare to people.
he used whatever ability he had to feed the poor. He healed them, healing the sick, I mean, you think about all of
He
these.
wasn't healing the sick and then giving them a fucking bill 3 months later.
No, you think about all of the miracles that Jesus enacted, and every single one of them has been countered by our current administration. They've done the exact opposite, and they claim to be for Jesus. I'm an atheist. I am 100%. I do believe Jesus was a human being. I believe he existed. I believe he had a great fucking message to pass on to the people. I also believe that he was bastardized and his message was bastardized to push whatever political power needed to be pushed at the time. Yeah, exactly. Whatever economic power needed to be pushed at the time. Whatever the powerful who had say over the weak had to push to keep that power, to keep that money, to make that money. Um,
We've we've
you
seen
know,
them. Oh, good. I'm sorry.
they hammered onto the cross above Jesus when he was crucified. They hammered King of the Jews. They did that out of spite in the same way that everything today that's being done in his name is done out of fucking spite. They just don't realize it. Sorry, go ahead.
Um, I forgot where I was going. Yeah, no, it wasn't important then.
It was important. I'm very sorry for
Probably was. No, it's okay. Gone now.
All right, well, if you guys have nothing else to add on this one, I'm going to move on to the our next and final topic, which is what does a country owe its people? And this is really what this entire conversation has been about. It's not about socialism. It's not about capitalism. It's about responsibility. Every Marine knows that if your team takes care of each other, everyone performs better. The question is whether that idea stops working the second someone takes the uniform off. So the question, what's one thing America could guarantee every citizen that would make the country stronger as a whole?
Healthcare. I think that there are a lot of things in this country that we don't get a say in that affects our health, right? For the most, I mean, if you think about, you know, and I don't know where I'm going with that as far as like maybe Matt, you want to jump in? I think I need to think about this a little bit more, but healthcare is where I'm going with it. I just need a minute to think about it.
Yeah, I mean, the the whole idea of like gutting the education system or whatnot or being opposed to me, it starts with education. Like these whatever political forces have gotten us to this point with, you know, destroying the Department of Education and destroying USAID and packing the Supreme Court and all this. Um, they've gotten away with it in large part because of how education has been undermined. Um, you know, the thing that sets man apart from other animals, in my opinion, is the fact it's not communication, it's not um, communication in general, it's not tool use. It's the fact that we write down what we know and put it in a building so that people that we'll never meet, who will be long dead before they ever are born, will can pick that information up and do something new with it and advance things. That's like the fundamental human thing, in my opinion. It makes us different than crows and elephants, octopuses, llamas, whatever, chimpanzees. That's the one thing that we can really claim that is only human. I'm sure, comments can disagree with that to a certain degree, but we write stuff down and we let other people read it, our accumulated knowledge. And when you start knocking the legs out from underneath that, just everything starts to crumble because every generation feels like they have to invent things on their own and rediscover their value system. You know, if only people would listen to the Jesus of the Bible, that is a great example of people writing down something that at least in part happened. Bible was written by many people over, many, 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 many years. But like we wrote stuff down, we wrote these values down. And I am absolutely not Christian. I'm not trying to, pimp Christian values or anything like that. I'm just using it as an example of like when you knock the legs out from the ability of when you de-emphasize the importance of education and you stop caring that children are well educated and you stop caring that we're building the new generation of engineers and scientists, then it becomes really easy to convince people that maybe like healthcare doesn't matter that much. Maybe like your neighbor who doesn't look like you, they don't actually deserve healthcare. So we're not going to do it. Or if we do, we're going to means test it and stuff like that. And when you have a more ignorant populace, you have a populace that's more susceptible to misinformation and so forth. And you know, that's to me is the number one thing that we need to be doing is getting back to emphasizing education, both meaningful elementary, middle, high school education and also post-secondary education, making universities better, putting more money into the system, money, paying teachers a lot better, getting the best people possible into our schools and paying for the best curricula is the number one thing. Everything else will flow from there because once people are smart and they see how things could be, they'll start demanding better, expecting better. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, kind of makes me want to change my answer, but I'm still still gonna still, I think healthcare as well could go along with that of I mean, it's the first topic you had, you talked about what was it like when you didn't have to worry about getting sick, or you didn't have to worry about what you were going to do if that happened, if you were going to go bankrupt. I mean, what's the number one cause of bankruptcy in this country?
Healthcare.
Right.
Medical debt, I see.
Medical debt. How many people are in medical debt right now? And you ain't got to go to college to get into it. That's one thing. Student
True.
loan debt, yeah, is one thing, but you ain't got to go to college to get into medical debt.
Very true.
But it can wipe your fucking life out, and change not just the trajectory for you, but the trajectory for your family, who are also going to be footed the bill when you go. I mean, shit, it costs money to put you in the fucking ground when you're gone. That's why I said, just chop me up and throw me out in the sea. Let the sea creatures eat me up.
Put me in the chum bucket.
I
Absolutely.
mean, put me in the chum bucket.
Throw me in the
At least,
trash.
then I'll be converted into energy for some good, But yeah, I think, and going along what you talked about, Matt, with thinking about your neighbor, and this concept of, and again, the propaganda is, well, do you want to you want your hard earned, you want to have to pay for somebody who doesn't work to get health care? Yeah, I don't mind it, because guess what?
Yeah.
If I'm paying for myself any fucking way, I'm not going to have to pay. If I'm paying the taxes on it, I'm also not going to. I'm also not going to have to fucking pay for co-pays and premiums and shit like that. Like, it's going to benefit me no matter what. So why not help somebody else out? Oh no, let's do a fucking GoFundMe page for fuck. You know what I mean? For fuck's sake, like, let's have people have to beg their fucking neighbors for money, which again is like the same. So you don't want to pay a little extra in taxes, or not even a little extra. You don't want to just take your premium, put it to taxes so that everybody can have health care, including yourself and your family. But you're willing to, put money into somebody's GoFundMe. What's the difference? Oh, because it's a one-time payment, that you don't have to worry about or whatever. And then you can feel good about yourself that you're helping some little kid with leukemia or whatever story is going along with the,
Yeah.
to make you feel good about it. But
It's the
yet
illusion of
you're too
choice.
much of
Yeah.
a piece of shit to want all the kids to have
Yeah.
healthcare, all the kids with leukemia to have healthcare. So don't get me started on that bullshit. That, I help this GoFundMe thing. Yeah, but you're also against free healthcare for everybody. So that kid's family wouldn't be in this fucking situation if you had a different mindset about what free healthcare means, and what universal healthcare means. Um, and so I just think, again, and that the relief of that pressure, I think, changes so much, right? From when somebody's allowed to have quality healthcare, they're not going to be as stressed as much about, and it also puts the pressure on, as Matt was saying earlier, about people being shackled to their desks because they can't afford to lose the healthcare that their companies provide them. This alleviates that for companies to have to start to treat their workers a little bit better, and not, hang on to the idea like they're not going anywhere. I provide them good healthcare, leaning back on that sort of crutch. So
It's
I can
also
treat
cheaper for the employer.
What's that?
It's also a lot cheaper for the employer. You
Right,
socialize
right.
the cost of healthcare and you socialize the benefit too, you know,
Yep.
It's a lot
And it
instead
cheaper
of
makes
for
privatizing
America.
costs. Yeah.
And
Hmm.
if you look at here in California, for example, it costs anywhere from $127,800 to $132,800 to keep someone for 1 year in prison. They're getting free healthcare. I mean, very limited, but free healthcare in there. So we're paying for their healthcare. We're also paying for their existence within prison. That's just some homeless guy picked up off the street who went into debt and became homeless because of fucking medical debt. You know what I'm saying? This is a self-perpetuating problem that's always going to exist, and we end up picking up the bill no matter what.
Yeah. Yep.
but
That's
but
exactly
I'll
right.
I'll, I'll say this on the healthcare thing too. I mean, what Matt said probably ties it all together better. Like if people were smarter, they would know this. They would be able to see. They would have the cognitive ability and the critical thinking skills to see that the wool has been pulled over their eyes by these insurance companies and the politicians that are being paid by them
Yep.
and funded by them and made rich by them. And again, the caveat, not all, well, most. Um, most of the current ones and anyone that's been in that bitch for a long time. Yeah, probably. Um, so yeah, I think hand in hand, education and healthcare, you know, are the things that should be guaranteed. We talk about how great this country is, and all the privileges, and what's the response usually is like, well, why don't you go somewhere else and see how it is there? Okay, motherfucker, I didn't say that it wasn't. I didn't say that it wasn't good here. You assume that because I want to make it even better.
Yeah.
Like, what is wrong
Yeah.
with wanting the shit to be even better for everybody? Going back to those kindergarten values of treat everybody like you'd want to be treated. If you were fucking in your last on your last dollar, wouldn't you want some help to be pulled out of that? But now imagine if you didn't even have to ask for help because you don't have medical debt to fucking also hold you back.
Yeah.
You go
Well
most
said.
places in the world, whether they're third world, second world, first world, you go most places in the world, I would say 90%. The thing that they'll say across the board is how uneducated and stupid Americans are. The second thing they'll talk about is how fat we are. But I
I'm
mean,
not helping that, but it's all right. Get back.
they all talk about how ignorant we are. In my travels, I've been to 36 countries now. Um, every single one of them, even the worst of the worst, have talked about how uneducated Americans are. The average American, not all of us, obviously, but they talk about how little we actually know, not just about the world, but about our own country, about our own existence, about our own economic structure, our own governmental structure. They talk about how naive we are to believe that we are the best. And that's what nationalism is. I mean, it's just this naivety of thinking you're better than everyone else. And it's sad to see as a lower middle class American. Well, I grew up lower middle class and went into the military. It's sad to see that that's what I served for was nationalism. That's the people who will go above and beyond to thank me for my service are nationalists. And they'll talk about how we are a Christian nation and blah, blah, blah. Like the Pledge of Allegiance says under God. It's like that was in the 50s. I mean, like that wasn't a thing until McCarthyism. It's really fucking sad to see what we have become in the last 60, 70 years. Fighting these empty wars, fighting for an economic structure that doesn't benefit us as citizens, fighting for benefits that don't benefit us as citizens. It's really a horrific existence we have. That said, I am still and will always be more lucky to be born an American than proud to be an American. I've said that many, many times. I'm lucky to be here. We have we have good lives. We have the potential to have good lives in that we can join the military and get blown the fuck up in some third world shithole and become a success. You know, I don't think most people have that opportunity. As fucked up as that sounds, that's my life. And that's why I'm doing this show, and that's why I'm here right now and talking about this crazy ass shit that a lot of people, a lot of Americans would see as traitorous. So
Well
if you,
said.
yeah, if you guys don't
Well
have
said.
anything to add here, I'm gonna go ahead and do the wrap it up. Do you guys have anything you wanna point out through the entire episode? Anything that you feel you need to say?
I think you just put a great button on it.
No, well, thank you. That was me talking from the heart, from my drunk ass. You see my coffee mug. This isn't coffee, everyone. Um, so to kind of wrap this episode up, I'll say this episode, it absolutely was not about proving that the Marine Corps is socialist. It was about pointing out how something we don't it was pointing out something we don't talk about enough. You know, millions and millions of Americans spend years living in a system where housing, healthcare, education, food, retirement, they're all treated as investments in people instead of rewards for wealth. Most of us never call it socialism. We call it taking care of Marines. Whether you agree with my politics or not, I think that's a conversation worth having. Because maybe the question isn't whether these ideas can work. Maybe the question is why we're so comfortable with them in one part of American life and so afraid of them everywhere else. And with that, I'll wrap up episode 19 of Goats and Cookies. Thank you, Lou. Thank you, Zach. And thank you, Matt, for coming on for this episode. I really appreciate you coming on as a guest, and I really hope to have you back again.
I'd
To
love to.
anyone watching this, like, subscribe, do all that normal bullshit. Maybe we can get monetized one day and we can have Ground News as a sponsor. Ground News, we're not paid by them whatsoever, but I recommend anyone who does not know what Ground News is to get on it. It's really informative in that it gives a leftist, centrist, and right-wing view of whatever article is coming out. So, you know, any kind of news that comes out, they'll give you the full spectrum of what is being reported and what percentage is being reported to who. Um, it really opens your eyes and really sets you up for debates. So if you're a debater like I am and you like to spar with people, you can know exactly what they know and where they know it from. And it gives you a more unbiased opinion on what's going on because you see the full spectrum. So with that, like, subscribe, all the other nonsense. Thank you, Lou, for our goat of the week. Thank you, Zach, for your legs. Thank you, Matt, for being our special guest. And again, we hope to have you again soon. And that's it. Thank you all very much.
One
Bye.
last plug before we go, though. Go to the week. I forgot to mention. Brought to you by Four Loco. Signing off.